Welcome to the Natural Parents Podcast, where we will cover all things faith, health, family, and wealth through a biblical perspective of putting things in life that matter most back into order. We're reminded of Matthew 6:33, where Jesus said, "But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things shall be added to you." Join us each week as we focus on what truly matters most in this life and passing those values on to the next generation. This is the Natural Parents Podcast with Ryan and Abbie Hukin.
Welcome back, guys. We're excited to share with you another podcast episode today where we're going to talk about harmonizing your life, especially around homeschool.
Yeah, so like harmony versus balance, a lot of times they go hand in hand. And, you know, for the longest time I was like, no, it has to balance, like everything has to balance. But really it's just when things work in harmony. Yeah,
we hear that a lot of times from parents, but just busy people in general. Is like, oh, I need a work-life balance, right? Work is a part of life, for sure. We're all about putting the things that matter most in life back into proper order. But I think the word balance, if we're really going to break it down, leads to this idea of taking from one and giving to another. I remember learning about scales and weight in school. I thought that was really cool. Like, take this like big thing that wasn't very heavy and set it on the scale, and then take this one little bitty thing and it was really heavy, and you could still make those scales balance out. But if you were putting beads or something on the scale, you had to take some from this side and put it onto that side until you got the weight relatively even. And so the word balance quite literally means to take from one and give to another. In financials, in the finance world, they talk about this idea of a zero-sum game, meaning that wealth, there is no manufacturing or creation of more money. Sadly, like the stock market is kind of set up this way. Like if you go, even like the cryptocurrencies and things like that were set up this way, where it's like, if this thing's doing really well, if one person's doing really well, that means, unfortunately, that somebody else is kind of losing money. And so there's no great wealth creation, but there's just a transfer of it and a balancing of it. And I don't like that way of thinking. And actually, it's not just that I don't like it. I don't think it's truly how life is. I think it's more about harmony and bringing harmony to it. And those sound like they're just words. It's just like semantics. But if we really break it down, I think it means something, especially to parents.
Yeah, and one time I heard a saying, I'm going to choose different examples than what the book gave, keep this PG, but it's like, okay, I'm eating healthy, but then that means that my workouts have to suffer. Like, just because one thing's doing really well doesn't mean that the other things have to suffer. Like, you can have it all. You can have everything be working for you and well all at the same time. So I think it's easy to think, oh, well, this is going really well, so what's about to, break on the back end?
Yeah. And sometimes people will say, well, that's just fairy tale land and optimistic thinking and things like that. But maybe so. I just happen to believe that you can live whatever life you want to live within, obviously, legal ramifications, etc. You
can have morals.
Right. You have to have morals, have to abide by the law, different things of that nature. I'm just saying, like, okay, for example, today is our son's, ideally, if the weather holds up, is our son's first t-ball game. It starts at 5:30. Typically on Thursdays I work until 6. Not today. Am I taking away from my off? No, I'm just maneuvering and creating an opportunity. Tomorrow I'll work until 6. I normally work till 5. But I'm going to make it work to where I get the best of both worlds. I get to serve people in my profession, and then I get to go and make sure that I'm at my son's first t-ball game. We can create and have whatever life that we want, whether you're an entrepreneur or you work a 9 to 5 or for someone else. Like, you can set boundaries in your life. You can create the lifestyle that you want to create and do it however you want to do it. People will respect you for that.
Yeah, and I feel like this is a big thing when it comes to homeschool. People put themselves in a box, and I totally get that, because that's like my nature. That's where I go. Like, everything has to fit in a box and everything has its time and its place, and you can't, heaven forbid, you move something around and be flexible. And honestly, you're the one that's, my mom would say, you ruined me.
I'm so loosey-goosey.
Yeah, you're just like, whatever. But that's where it comes to homeschool, because some people are like, well, I want to homeschool, but I work. And they think that's just it. Well, that's it. My kid has to just go to public school. But if it's truly a desire of yours, there are things that you can do to work around it. Like you can work remote. You can ask if you're in a physical location, you can ask your boss if there's remote positions available, or if you can do a couple days remote and maybe they stay with the grandparent on the days that you go in, or whatever that may look like. And you may be thinking, okay, but I'm still working remote. How am I supposed to homeschool my kid? Well, yes, but homeschooling your kid does not take very long. And a lot of times people think public school is the only option that they have because they want to they don't know what to do with their child during the day when they're working. And so remote work can help that. But then in the evenings or before you work, whatever your schedule may look like, you can schedule that time. It takes at most a couple hours to do. And you can split it up morning and evening.
For sure. And again, coming back to the idea, like, okay, there's a lot of families out there that are just like, man, I don't know that I want to send my kiddo to public or private school for that matter. I really would love to homeschool them, but... And there's always that but that feels about a balancing of life. And so I think when parents oftentimes are looking at that, we're too linear or we're too inside the box thinking that we need both of our incomes. Well, possibly. You might need two incomes. Finances are a piece of life for sure, and we need to be able to make money to provide for our families and set up for a future and put dinner on the table and all these different things. That's a reality of life. I'm not ignorant of that when we're talking about this. However, what is it in life that we could actually go without to make sacrifices to put this at the forefront of our children's needs? So many people, whether it's what children are receiving as education formally, that the government has established as these parameters of hierarchy that we need to actually develop into our children at certain ages, whether it's that they don't want them to learn, or they don't want them to pick up on some of the other habits from some of the other kids that maybe don't have those morals and standards and
their home
structure
life.
And that home life that they're bringing to school. And I joke about, that kind of getting on to the other kids and they're bringing that home. And so there's a whole dynamic there that gets brought up. And if that's truly something we want to navigate around, it might look like we've got to make some sacrifices whenever it comes to the finances aspect of going to a single income.
Yeah, it may look like debt pay down first,
sure.
Let's finish out this school year in public school, let's pay down debt, maybe then you can work on one income. I think oftentimes people maybe feel like they should homeschool, and so like, oh, but I can't, because I have a job and I have to have that income and things, and if that's the case, and if homeschool truly isn't a desire of your heart, that's all right.
For sure.
Like, if that is just what you want your kid to be involved in, every parent has that right, and it's not wrong. Like, you can have whatever you think is appropriate for you and your family, but there are options. Like, even you could do a buddy system, with some co-op friends that you meet, because there's plenty of ways, contrary to popular belief, that homeschool kids... But they're going to be
socially awkward.
I know. Homeschool kids can socialize.
Yeah.
And truly very, very well with adults. We have a lot of homeschool friends, and their kids are the best.
Seriously well-rounded.
Yeah, so well-rounded, talented, smart, can communicate with adults like so well. And so there's the buddy system. You can, like, if I had to work in the office or whatever that may be, and I can't maybe care for my kids while they're out of school, right? Because that also serves as the babysitter. I would call Danielle and be like, hey, can we swap off here and be able to do that? So there's definitely ways to get creative with being able to, even if in this season it feels like it is out of reach.
Yeah, and again, going back to, because I think it's a big root, there's two main objections that I think come to the forefront when we talk to people or people talk to us about asking about homeschooling their kids. And one is the time money construct of things. And so getting outside of the box of thinking that it's got to be even a 9-to-5 remote position.
Right.
It's like, this is 2024. There are tons of moral ways to make money online that you can actually do, whether it's 5 a.m. while the kids are still sleeping, or 9 p.m. after they go to bed, or 10 p.m. sometimes. Our kids are resistant to bed still. So there's a lot of different things. I mean, it's actually amazing. The one that I cannot even believe, I'm going to say this on the podcast right now, but there is actually a way for you to get paid for your poop.
What?
Did you know this? Yeah, there's a website where this is a major thing. Sorry, side note, of actually health care, where we're trying to help people. Some of the healthiest people in the world have these really healthy guts. Research? Yeah. So they're actually, this is crazy. They're transplanting other people's fecal matter into really, really sick people. And the really, really sick people, autoimmune disease, cancer, just major degenerative sicknesses, they're healing because they get their microbiome figured out. And so that's a whole nother podcast topic for another day, is how important the microbiome is for you and your family's health. But it's crazy. Like, you can get paid for that, like $500 per sample that you send.
You'd be regular.
Lab,
you could
right?
be a millionaire.
I know it's a very, very niche, very specific amount of matter that they're looking for and all these types of things. So that might be hard. But I'm just telling you, you cannot sit here and tell me that there's not a way for you to make money online, upholding your ethics, your morals, your values, and not get paid to do
Sell
that.
your poop.
If homeschooling is that important to you. And so the other thing that you touched on is the social aspect of things. Like how kiddos, I tell you, the most well-rounded, I mean, like, if you are thinking about homeschooling and your family is telling you that this objection is present and like, oh, you don't want your kids to be like those socially awkward homeschool kids, give me one time in reality of life after we turn 18 years old and go graduate into the workplace, give me one time where we only work with, converse with, get along with people of our exact same age for the rest of life.
Right.
I mean, you're going to have a manager that's older and or younger than you in the workplace. You're going to have different demographics, different cultures, different lifestyles. And the more well-rounded we get that, I think you get that in homeschool more than you get anywhere else.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes the young kids, especially in co-ops, are engaging and playing with and learning with older kids and vice versa. And it's just that, I think, actually gives forth the most well-rounded future for our children. If we look at how the current American education system was set up, the founder of it, it was right around, I think 1830 was the timeline of this, as he started to formalize it and say, hey, children need some sort of structure and free opportunity to learn. And I think the roots of that were pure. But then the Rockefeller family got a hold of it. And they said, hey, we could actually set up a system where we could train a workforce to be employed by us. And so we need them to learn and do certain things in a certain way, and only that way, do what they're told, listen to authority, not question it, all this kind of stuff. And they started to set up the American education system. They got their fingers in on it. And it looks totally different than what I think it was originally intended to be. Was this pure, like, let's teach children, let's educate people. I want to say it's Winston Churchill, but I don't actually think it is. It's somebody else has this quote that the problem with the current education system is not that we're not educated enough. It's that we're only educated to the point that we no longer ask questions about our education. And I think so much of not homeschooling is set up that way. And so, again, the point of this conversation is for those of you out there that are maybe thinking, is homeschooling really a viable option for us? I'm here to tell you it is. It's figure-outable. I just happen to believe that anything in life that can be thought can be created, can be, like, for lack of a better term, manifested into reality. If we can think it, nothing that exists in life wasn't first a thought before we ever had it. And so if just that, homeschooling is a desire, you're pure in that. That's an okay desire to have, and it is obtainable. We're just here to deepen that conversation around it for you and hopefully encourage you to pursue it.
Yeah, and kind of like you said, of just like how kids are, they can be very well-rounded. Like, if a kid is with its mom or dad or caregiver or whoever that may be, and like they're just able to walk through life with you, and they can take care of, like, if you have a homestead or you have animals, like they learn about animals' needs and where their food comes from and how to plant a garden, and maybe finances, like thinking through different scenarios of finances. Besides for counting money, I don't know that I ever had that education. I mean, I know that we took a personal finance class
I knew that's right.
in high school, but other than that, just when they're able to walk through life with you. But also, I think that it's a common thing for moms and parents to act like their children are a burden. And so if you're that kind of person, then this would never work, because your children are going to be with you a lot. But it's such a blessing. You know how much life that you get back whenever you are able to spend that time with your kids and intentionally raise them to have the values and the morals and and the education and experiences that you want for your child.
Well, and I hear it all the time, especially from moms, because they seem to be the primary educator in the homeschool environment, is I don't know if I'm qualified to educate my child. And that breaks my heart, because I'm here to tell you that that is a product of the system that wants you to think that way. They want to create in you your child do what they're told, 9-to-5 system kind of employee, for lack of a better term. But there's no one on this planet that's more qualified to educate your child than you.
One time I was talking to this mom who seemingly had it all together. She had a lot of kids. She had homeschooled for a really long time. And in my eyes, did everything right. And it was something that, when you're looking at it, you're like, oh, well, how could I ever be that? And I said, I'm like, how do you know how do you know everything to educate your kids? And she said, you don't. You stay one step ahead. And that has stuck with me. That was over 6 years ago when the girls were itty bitty. We were in Atlanta for a conference, and I just was asking her about that. And that was always so inspirational to me, because you're right. It's not like you have to have all of the education that you ever learned in your life right up here, the front, tip of your tongue to come out and educate your kids. There's also such good curriculums to choose from. And there's conferences and events and things that you can actually go and hold and study and look at the curriculum. But you also, if it doesn't work for you, it may work for your friend and their kids, but if it doesn't work for you, there's a million more to choose from. You can do ones that are like Christian companies, like The Good and the Beautiful is the one that we do with the kids right now. Great curriculum, incorporates Jesus, has great morals that teaches your kids, things like that. But also just giving ourselves permission to not only be the source of education that our kids are getting. And so yesterday, we were actually in the garden, the kids and I was trying to take out what I was hopeful was flowers. My dad told me that they're just weeds that will flower eventually, but they're just weeds. So I was trying to get some of those out, and I was looking, and I noticed that there was foam, looked like soap almost, on one of the leaves. And I was like, ew, gross. I wonder if it's from a snake. Is there a snake in here? I don't know if they foam or anything, but I don't like snakes, and I didn't like the foam, so maybe they went together. And those are just thoughts I was having to myself. And then Avery comes up to me and she goes, Mom, see this foam here? And I'm like, yeah, please don't ask me what it is, because I don't know, And she's like, do you know what that's from? I do, I'll tell you. And I was like, okay, please do tell me, thinking she was just going to make something up. And she goes, I learned on PBS Kids that something that is similar to a caterpillar, it wasn't exactly a caterpillar, will put this foam out their butt and put it on the leaf, and it makes their home, and it protects them. I'm like, what? And I look it up. Yeah, sure thing. She's telling the truth. And I'm like, where did you learn that? And she's like, PBS Kids. Eleanor wonders why. And so, again, you just don't have to be the one that is only educating your kids. When you have screen time and TV time, it can be things that are educational and fill their brain with good knowledge, and not just the mindless TV of girlfriends and boyfriends that are in junior high. And I don't know why I call it junior high. I always call it middle school, but I feel like the show's called junior high. And so it's just not good. It's not adding anything to their life and to their knowledge.
Sure. And we all have those moments, and screen time's a whole discussion for a whole nother day, which I want to get into. But I think you nailed it. It's let's make purpose out of this screen time, if you will. Okay, again, I've got to get something done real quick. Hey kids, let's watch an episode of, what an awesome title to a show, Eleanor Wonders Why. It's let's ask questions, let's figure things out, and they get to learn in that. And now we've got productive time whenever you were able to probably get some work done in that moment, or do something, as we have a lot going on with living in the camper and building a house and doing all these different things. It's you're able to make the most of that. It's not that is their formal education. It's just let's make most of the time that we have. And so, yeah, I think that's really good. And giving just parents, if you guys are seriously curious about it, just permission that you are able to go and seek these answers. The curriculum conversation can be overwhelming, but just know wherever you start, it's probably not where you're going to end up, but just getting started is the most important thing, and we support you in that.
Yeah, and so if you're looking on like pulling your kids out of public school, starting the homeschool, in the show notes there's going to be a website that you can go and you can click on your state and it will give you the homeschool laws. So just a good resource for you if you're starting that journey and don't know where to start.
From the bottom of our hearts, we want to thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with someone you know and leave a review. By doing so, we're able to grow this community of amazing people just like you and raise a generation of children that know God and do His will on earth. We'll see you next time.